It's been a while since I've heard anyone talk about this series. That might be because no one's touched upon it since 1998. That's right, the last time one of these movies was released. In the age of Die Hard 5, Indiana Jones 4, Rocky 6, and Rambo 4, it baffles me that Mel Gibson, Danny Glover, and the rest of the Lethal crew didn't come together to do one more. Yeah, I'm sure everyone's old now, but if Sylvester Stallone, Bruce Willis, and Arnold Schwarzenegger can come back from retirement in their 60s, I don't see why these guys can't get the same treatment. The Lethal series seems to get overlooked when people talk about great action movies. I wonder if that's because it's a buddy cop series. If you think about it, at their core, movies like Die Hard and Rambo feature one-man wrecking crews going after hordes of evil terrorists or policemen. The buddy cop genre is a subgenre of the action category, and today it seems like no one can get it right. In recent years, the buddy cop movie has been whittled down to self-parody. Wes Craven even attempted to riff on the genre in Scream 4, and in my opinion that was the stupidest, most pointless scene in that film.
Fuck Bruce Willis.
And they all try to follow a very straightforward formula. You have two clashing personalities that eventually have to work together to solve a crime. Either it's a young cop and an old cop, an over-the-top comedian and a proven action hero, a fat cop and a skinny cop, or a father teaming up with his son. This one seems to be the current trend. Either way, what makes these films so forgettable is that usually the filmmakers focus more on the jokes and the raunchy humor than they do on the chemistry between the main characters. There seems to be this notion that when doing a genre film, the characters aren't as important as the sight gags, the explosions, the CG, or the stunts. If you look at horror movies, for example, you usually find blood galore, but very little character development. Action movies, as of late, suffer the same fate. The explosions and the devastation are fantastic, but by the time it's all over, no one remembers the story. I just saw Schwarzenegger's The Last Stand, and I remember a lot of the action set pieces, but I couldn't tell you anything about the characters. The only reason I remember the film at all was because it had Arnold.
Who told you you can eat my cookies?
So going back to Lethal Weapon, the main reason I remember these films was because of the relationships between the characters.
But remember, he's not a suspect yet, so we question him, not damage him, okay?
Oh, sure, yeah. Okay, I won't hurt. Look, I'll let you do all the talking.
Let me do all the talking. Remember that, let me do all the talking.
Okay, experience counts here.
It started with just Martin Riggs and Roger Murtaugh, two cops of different ages who hate each other.
Guess what?
What?
I don't want to work with you.
Hey, don't.
Ain't got no choice. Looks like we both the fucked.
But are nonetheless partnered up to hunt down a drug cartel. As the sequels came out, the Lethal family got bigger and the series lightened up in tone. We got Joe Pesci, Rene Russo, and Chris Rock, all of who brought something new to the series. And then you have the Murtaugh family, consisting of Roger's wife Trish, his oldest daughter Brienne, his son Nick, and his younger daughter Carrie. Most of the time, Roger's family plays a small but significant part of the series, and aside from Carrie, each movie puts one of them in some sort of dilemma. It's rare that you find yourself caring for a supporting character in an action film, and yet it seemed that the Murtaugh family was another welcome addition to the cast. What strengthened that factor was that the same actors came back to reprise their roles. Typically, as a series grows and actors get older, minor characters are generally written out, killed off, or replaced with other actors. Surprisingly, all of the Murtaughs came back for the 3 sequels, so there's a real sense of consistency, and it's easy to feel like this is a real family. The other factor that helps the strength of the series is director Richard Donner, who helmed all 4 films along with producer Joel Silver. Again, what film series has the same director helmed every entry? It happens, but it's rare. It might be because there was a 2 to 5 year gap in between films, and Donner had time to relax in between making them, but again, it helps with the film's consistency. Each installment feels like a genuine entry, as if they were one movie split into 4 parts. I don't know why people tend to overlook these movies. It seems that a lot of people enjoyed them as teenagers, but when looking back on them, uncovered a lot of their flaws. It goes without saying that aside from the characters and the humor, the action set pieces are very tame when compared to what's been achieved today. And then again, the Lethal films have something going for them that is sorely lacking from today's high-budget popcorn thrillers, and you don't even have to throw money at it to achieve it. They had memorable characters and decent writing. There was a sense with these movies that everyone, from the cast to the crew, was a family. The end credits of Lethal Weapon 4 feature a big photo album that shows behind-the-scenes pictures of people working on the sets. Typically, the general movie-going audience doesn't care about that sort of thing, but there was a definite feeling that the people involved with the making of these films had a good time, and it shows.
The address.
Come on, let's go, Raj.
No, we shouldn't go.
Let's go. Come on, Raj. Don't be a killjoy. Come on, we're back. We're bad. You're black. I'm mad. Come on, let's go.
Come on.
Hey, listen. If we're going, What, shouldn't I have a gun?
No!
So now that's out of the way, let's talk about the individual films. Lethal Weapon came out in 1987 and begins with a random hooker committing suicide. Sergeant Roger Murtaugh, played by Danny Glover, finds out that the hooker was actually the daughter of a former Vietnam buddy of his, Michael Hunsaker, who's actually involved with the drug cartel that was started back in the war. Then we meet psychotic cop Martin Riggs, played by Mel Gibson, who was fresh off of the Mad Max series. We discover that Riggs' wife was recently killed, causing him to have suicidal tendencies.
The man is suicidal.
And you're sure of that diagnosis? You have no doubts. You know that.
No, there are no absolutes in life.
End of discussion.
It can't
We're gonna
be
wait.
We can't
And then
wait,
if he
sir.
offs himself, then we'll know I was wrong.
He carelessly walks into the middle of gunfights, taking out snipers and drug dealers, not really caring if he lives or dies.
You're one psycho son of a bitch, but you're good.
His reckless behavior is the draw of the film. He is the lethal weapon, and he gives no excuses. One of the standout scenes is where Riggs approaches a would-be suicide victim, and instead of using psychology to talk him down, he handcuffs himself to the man and then jumps off the building.
Do you really want to jump? Do you want to? Well, then that's fine with me. Come on. Let's do it, asshole. Let's do it. I want to do it. I want to do it. What do you mean?
One of the questions I always ask is, how did he know the police were going to catch him? That's the point. Riggs is purely crazy, and he just doesn't care about anyone or anything. Gary Busey plays Joshua, an ex-mercenary with a high pain tolerance and skills in hand-to-hand combat, as we see in the film's climax. His boss is a corrupt general played by Mitch Ryan.
I'm warning you. Don't. Spare me, son. It's over. There's no more heroes left in the world.
The villains in this movie are pretty stock. The general spends most of the time barking out orders, with his only real offense being when he threatens Brienne in the third act. Then we're introduced to the Murtaugh family. We first meet them when Murtaugh reluctantly brings Riggs home to meet them. There's not much to the scene, although we learn that Trish is a terrible cook and that Brienne has a thing for Riggs, which actually plays out in later films. During the third act, the villains kidnap Brienne, spurring Murtaugh and Riggs to go rogue and go after the bad guys themselves. It's a satisfying movie, more for its characters than for the action. There are no big car chases, a decent house explosion, and some fun shootouts, but the charm really comes from seeing how the two main characters put up with each other.
No bullshit. You want to kill yourself? Oh, for Christ. Shut up! Yes or no? You want to die? Yes or no? I got the job done. What the hell do you want? Didn't answer the question.
Oh, what do you want to hear, man? Do you want to hear that sometimes I think about eating a bullet? Huh?
Well, I do.
It's got a lot of heart, which is more than what can be said for most action films today. The funny thing is, Donner didn't know there would be a sequel. In the original ending, Riggs and Murtaugh part ways just as they become good friends. Had they used this ending and then did the sequel, it would have been interesting to see how they would have ended up back together. As it stands, the film ends with the two of them having Thanksgiving dinner together, perfectly setting up Lethal Weapon 2. The movie opens, and listen to the music. It sounds like the introduction to a Looney Tunes short. Let this set the mood for this movie. Don't get me wrong, in many ways this is the darkest entry in the series, and we'll get into that in a minute. But it also takes the jokes and the humor to another level, balancing the darker plot points and the action perfectly. Whereas the first movie lacked a major car chase, Lethal 2 starts right off the bat in the middle of one. To make matters worse, Riggs is acting like his usual crazy self, and they're in pursuit in Trish's new station wagon.
You're not going to make it. I'm going to make it. You know, there's not enough room. Sure, I'll make it. You're not going to make it. Move on. Get off, motherfucker.
God damn it, you were right, you know. Yeah, there wasn't enough room.
For this film, Riggs and Murtaugh are after a corrupt South African diplomat who is using offshore currency to smuggle drugs. In the midst of hunting down the bad guys, they're also charged with looking after a witness for the state, the annoying yet lovable Leo Getz, played by Joe Pesci.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. That's me, Leo Getz. Whatever you need, Leo Getz. You get it? I use that all the time to break the ice when I meet people. You know, it's good.
I can see why some audiences would cringe at this character while others embrace him. When looking at him from the spectrum of the first movie, he's a ridiculous character and adds a completely different feel. Getz was a money launderer who got into trouble when he started stealing money from his boss. The character is most memorable for his "they fuck you" scenes.
Don't ever go up to the drive-thru, okay? Always walk up to the counter. You know why? Okay. They fuck you at the drive-thru, okay? They fuck you at the drive-thru. They know you're gonna be miles away before you find out you got fucked, okay? They fuck you in the hospital. First they drug you, then they fuck you. And when they're done fucking you, along comes the insurance company and fucks you some more. They fuck you with cell phones. That's what it is. They're fucking you with the cell phone. They love when you get cut off. You know why? Huh? You know why? Because when you call back, which they know you're gonna do, they charge you for that fucking first minute again at that high rate.
Getz would appear in the rest of the sequels, acting mainly as a detective who would steer Martin and Roger in the right direction. But I feel bad for him.
Yeah, all right, I'll take my car then.
No, you're
yes,
not.
I am. I can't believe you did that! I got a spare in the truck. I'll fix you.
He solely exists as an object for the main characters to pick on, and has little to offer in the future films aside from comic relief.
Okay. So, okay. Look, the guy goes, but you're blick.
In this movie, Getz actually gets himself in some real danger, and you end up sympathizing with him. Riggs finds a love interest in the form of Rika Vandenhaas, played by the attractive Patsy Kensit, a secretary working for Rudd who's trying to make an escape. There's decent chemistry between the actors, but I felt Kensit was cast mainly to add sex appeal to the film, as well as a plot device to heighten Riggs' emotions. She's a memorable character, but I'm not sure for the right reasons. You have the villains, Vorstedt, played by Derek O'Connor, and the big man, Arjun Rudd, played by Joss Ackland. Again, they're mostly your generic bad guys, but they're actually a little more interesting this time around.
Don't open that. That is a diplomatic pouch protected under Article 27 of the Vienna Convention.
Riggs finds out at the end of the film that Vorstedt actually played a part in his past, which raises the stakes and makes Riggs go on an all-out rampage. This is Gibson's standout performance as the character of Martin Riggs, as we really get to see his dark side come out. The Murtaugh family is back, although this time mainly for comic relief. There's a running gag involving Rianne's debut in a commercial. Everyone gets real excited until they find out that it's an advertisement for condoms. As a gag, Roger's fellow officers buy him an artificial rubber plant. My favorite scene in the film is where Murtaugh is on the toilet. I won't spoil the outcome, but you never see this kind of thing in today's action movies. It's the highlight of the whole movie and deserves a mention. Lethal 2 is a worthy successor to the original. It's darker and zanier at the same time. We learn a little more about Riggs' past, the action scenes are a little more inventive, and the dialogue is really good.
Diplomatic community. It's just been revoked.
Some would argue that Lethal Weapon 3 was where the series started to go downhill. Released in 1992, Riggs and Murtaugh returned to the scene to go after a weapons dealer selling machine guns to kids on the street. The entire cast returns along with series newcomer Rene Russo, playing uptight internal affairs agent Lorna Cole.
From what I've seen of their records, the only thing they do contribute is mayhem and chaos.
No, I'm chaos and he's mayhem. We're a double act.
What are we, required reading or something?
As a matter of fact, you are. It's a cross between Police Gazette and Mad Magazine.
What's wrong with Mad Magazine?
Oh, nothing. I used to read it myself.
Oh, well, yeah, you got some taste. You got some good taste, huh?
When I was 12.
Judging from Pesci's appearance, Lethal 3 makes an unconscious statement about the styles of the time, with his bleached hair and ear piercings.
Hey, don't do it. Don't let the earring fool you. Okay.
Some would argue that the writing is a little more clumsy, as there are a few scenes that feel they belong in a sitcom rather than in an action film. The villain, an ex-cop gone bad named Jack Travis, is nothing short of unoriginal, and yet at this point he's probably the most charismatic villain the series has to offer. In the very first scene that introduces him, he takes one of his guys and buries him in concrete for following up a robbery attempt.
Now we got a relationship we can build on.
He also gets into it with Riggs at the end. It's a silly film. There's a scene right out of James Bond where Travis's pickup truck converts into a railway car to escape Riggs' pursuit. However, the film scores points for its dramatic elements. The first dilemma is that Roger gets depressed about retiring. Martin tries to cheer him up and even tries to get him to stay on the force for a few more years. Getz, now a real estate broker, tries in vain to sell Roger's house but can't make a sale because of his full disclosure clause.
Anything else you want to disclose before we go on?
Okay. Now that you mention it, the bathroom upstairs has been completely remodeled due to unexpected bomb damage.
The film gets really heavy when during a shootout, Roger, in self-defense, ends up killing one of Nick's friends. It's an uncomfortable moment, and for a while Murtaugh goes off the edge like Martin did in the very beginning. Once again, Rene Russo adds another layer to the film. It tries to go back to when Riggs and Murtaugh didn't get along, In this film, they start off hating each other, Riggs uses his persuasive charm to sway her, and the two become lovers. It doesn't work as well in this film because unlike the first movie, they don't give us an entire film for this transition to take place. However, we see the two are a perfect match for each other when Riggs discovers she's this badass martial artist.
Maybe I should go with her, Riggs.
No, I want you to see something, Rod. She has a gift. Watch this.
How are you doing?
Oh, this guy's on parole.
And this guy's an
I don't have a lot more to say about this one. It's a lot lighter than the first two films with plenty of action and drama to be entertaining. It's one of those films you have to be in the right mood for because at times the comedy overpowers the action and the story. There's a lot more slapstick, but just enough dramatic moments to make it memorable. Lethal Weapon 4 came out in 1998 and was the last installment before the Lethal film crew decided they were too old for this shit.
We're not too old for this shit.
On top of the usual gang, you also had the appearance of Chris Rock as Sergeant Lee Butters and Jet Li as the main antagonist, Hua Xing-ku, who's using cheap slave labor so he can buy back members of a Chinese triad. Mainly because of Chris Rock, this one feels mostly like a slapstick comedy.
I thought he was.
There's a lot of banter between characters, especially between Rock and Pesci.
Maybe we'll work together someday. I'm the bomb. They'll tell you I'm great, you know?
Yeah, we gonna work together. As soon as I open up a cereal shop, you fucking leprechaun.
And not nearly enough drama as there could have been given this was the series' swan song. It starts out with an explosive action sequence where, in the heat of the action, Roger reveals to Martin that he's going to be a father.
Shit, a baby.
While Martin reveals to Roger that he's going to be a grandfather.
They asking me to be a granddaddy?
Yeah.
We switch to 9 months later, where we discover that Lorna, Riggs' girlfriend who survived the third film, is having thoughts on getting married. During an intense gunfight on the water, Roger stumbles upon a family of Chinese immigrants and decides to take them into his household.
The way I see it, there's a slave ships out there. And I'm freeing slaves. I'm freeing slaves. Like no one did for my ancestors, okay?
Aside from Jet Li, the big boss in charge is Uncle Benny, played by Kim Chan, who resides in Chinatown and is more of an elusive pain in the ass than a threat.
Well, the problem is he shot at me and Raj too, and that pisses us off.
Too bad they missed.
Leo Getz returns to offer his usual brand of stalled tactics so he can help out his friends, although because of Lorna's pregnancy, there isn't much she can do in this film, which is kind of disappointing given how much ass she proved she could kick in the third film. I can't really talk too much about this film without giving away spoilers. This one feels like a bunch of jokes and action scenes were just spliced together to form a disjointed story.
I give my right arm for a siren right now.
It's still entertaining, but by this time, Riggs was no longer the dark, psychotic maniac hopelessly throwing himself into harm's way, and he had a baby on the way. At least the film comes full circle, in a heartfelt scene where it's finally apparent that Riggs is truly too old for this shit.
We're not too old for this shit.
There are a lot of good action scenes, including an intense house fire and a riveting highway chase scene. It's good for laughs, and the end battle where Riggs and Murtaugh have to fight Lee is the highlight of the film. Rightfully so, as it was the last action scene of the series. In my opinion, it's the worst of the series, but it tries really hard to please, and it still has it where it counts. It was an appropriate way to end the series because I really would have hated to see how comical a fifth installment would have been. I could probably go on and discuss the plots of these films in much more intricate detail. In 1998, to celebrate the release of Lethal Weapon 4, Warner Brothers released the original 3 films as director's cuts, with several minutes of new footage added in for extra value. Normally, extended scenes tend to bog down a movie, but I would definitely recommend them, as they do seem to complement the films nicely. We aren't talking Peter Jackson-sized editions either. They added in 7 minutes to the first film, 5 minutes to the second film, and 3 minutes to the third film. They aren't enough to completely change your taste in the movies, but there's some good stuff, and the additional content definitely feels necessary. My final verdict. These are some truly great movies that got forgotten with age. As much as I hate to admit it, that might be a good thing. They could get people talking about these films again by making a subpar fifth film where Mel Gibson's son and Danny Glover's grandson team up together, but I think it's better if the films were left alone for people to merely glance back at. If you haven't seen these movies in a while, look them up, because they've definitely aged well.
Raj, meet your new partner.
I'm too old for this shit.